titled The Journey to the Red Planet. And basically this is where we'll take and look at annual review of all the plans that are going on around the world with different organisations, be it public or private. With us tonight, so thank you for those people coming on. We'll get introductions of those shortly. Then we'll have a break for socialising. This is when you can do a bit of speed dating and spy that attractive person across the room and wander up and ask if they come here often. But yeah, that's a nice way to get to know other people. Do please take the opportunity. Go and introduce yourself to someone you haven't spoken to before. It's always a good fun, and it's great catching up with people of the same interest. Then we'll go on to our news segment, which we're going to look at the ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter and the Scaparelli lander. See how that all went. And we'll have a Red Planet update from our resident Russian Soviet expert, Igor Rosenberg. And then we'll go to an update of planetary news from our expert Andrew Rennie, who's also the presenter and producer of our radio show, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Just a bit of news on, we spoke about last time. A person here in Melbourne has got a vast collection of space collectibles and has asked the association to help him to try to sell some of these things. He needs the money, but he's also got health issues which he sort of really wants to make sure these things don't get thrown in the dumpster, basically. And so he's asked us to help him to sort of get, sell some of these things. So we've already sold the Neil Armstrong. He's very happy, and the person that bought it, more importantly for him and the owner of it, it went to somebody in South Australia who was really appreciating the value and the uniqueness of it. So he's very, very happy about that. This guy here is also being sold, but we've got a few other things. These items here on the floor are available. So if you're interested in any of those, there'll be a lot more stuff coming up. I'll talk to you about that later. We've also got a website we're running. One thing that has come up, one of our members has a share in a timeshare property in the US, in Florida. And cut a long story short, the property is available for people that may be interested in travelling to the US, to go to Florida, or even to go other places, because the timeshare program sort of runs worldwide. So you might want to do a timeshare in Paris, for example. Anyway, this person in the association here has a lot of credits in this property, and would like to make those available to people in the organisation who might avail themselves of it. All that they ask is to help a little bit with the cost of the annual maintenance fee, which gets incurred on the membership. So look, if that's something you're interested in, you've got some travel to the US or elsewhere, you think you might want to make use of that, there'll be a bit of a win-win there. Have a chat to me or send me an email, etc., and we can put you together with the person that's involved in that and give you the more details. Do you want to take note of that? Yeah. I really think it should be this Space Association committee go over there for a study tour, fully funded by the association, but I can't get that past the committee, so... okay. Maybe it's better to ask to forgiveness rather than permission. Okay, so coming up probably more imminently after tonight is this event being run by National Geographic in conjunction with their TV series which is coming out. So Buzz Aldrin's coming back out. He's going to be here in Melbourne on the 4th November, Sydney on the 6th November, and in Canberra on the 7th of November. We've been given a link for discount tickets. It should be a big night. We've got not only Buzz, but a bunch of NASA and other European Space Agency experts on the Mars program. So if you're interested in going along, there's a few flyers around there on the table. Should be an interesting night. Now, in parallel to that, one of our members, interstate members, has actually gone ahead and purchased a VIP ticket, which was $655 they paid. Unfortunately, they're unable to make it, so they asked me to sort of let everyone know that there's a ticket available. He's sort of asking $500. If you're thinking about going, it's a good opportunity. You don't get a personal one-on-one with Buzz, but he's going to be at this sort of cocktail event, so I don't know. this should be quite good. So if you're interested in that, once again, drop me an email, give me a call, have a chat with me tonight. If you're thinking about going to, you can make yourself get yourself a bit of a discount, and also help this person in Adelaide who unfortunately he'd love to get here, but he's got some issues that preclude him from being able to make it. Now, let's get back to the nuts and bolts of the association. We've only got one more regular meeting for the year to go, which is November 28th. Once again, it's our fourth Monday of the month formula, and that's going to continue. And I think we spoke last time that the fourth Monday of December puts us right into silly season, so we might be doing that. So what we've done, we've secured a different date, and we're going to have our fourth now annual trivia night. So it's going to be called the Frankenhard Trivia Night. Now, our treasurer Tim Franken has been working on it, and it's going to be a brain twister. I don't know if anyone's been to our trivia nights in the past, but it's a load of fun, and it's made for all levels of knowledge and experience of space and space information. So yeah, if you have it here, it's a lot of fun. We have a few prizes and things like that. So come along. So that'll be Monday, December the 12th. So it won't be the fourth Monday of December, it'll be the second Monday of December. So we'll send you an email out with the details of that, and come along, it's a load of fun. And you can have a beer as well. Now, I intimated last month that I was about to go into some discussions with the management of the corporate RSL. They said we're going to be making some decisions, which put the wind up us, thinking we're going to be booted out. I'm delighted to announce that we've secured the venue again for the next 12 months. They really appreciate our being here, and you're all well behaved and nice and neat and well behaved, so thank you for that. So there's been very little fighting in the car park, which I'm pleased, and so thank you, and not much graffiti now. So that's great. So once again, we're back to our fourth Monday of the month for 2017. So these are the dates. We'll send them. We'll put them on our website shortly. This is where we normally have the AGM. We'll probably have it on that date as well this time, but that's just a place marker. That's around about the time as we have the AGM. So at that stage, you can think about throwing me and the rest of the committee out. If you don't like what we do, that's fine. So it's a good opportunity to get involved as well.
11th of December, that's the
12th of December. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
11th of December.
That's a nice set of Monday.
It's a Monday night. That's a Monday night. So if we do the same thing that we're doing this year, that will be the Monday. The second Monday is the 11th. So I just put it up as a keep the date for it.
Okay. So we haven't got that date locked in,
no, but
yeah. Excellent. So that's the schedule at this stage. Now, as you may or may not be aware, the Space Association, one of its activities, as well as having meetings and special events, one of our longest running activities, continuously running activities, has been our radio program, which runs on 88.3 Southern FM every Wednesday night from 7 to 8 p.m. And that's been going, how many years now, Andrew, continuously? Andrew, Rennie, come in, Andrew, Rennie.
Andrew, how many years radio show were you going for?
Oh, about 25 years.
25 years. Andrew started off as a teenager, and
When he was old then.
and he's still doing it, so there you go. So yeah, 25 years we've been running. We haven't missed a show on Wednesday. Rain, hail, shine, Christmas, New Year's, or whatever. So it's been going for that long period of time. So we've had some great things happen around the radio station. We've moved several times. The technology's increased and improved significantly. What we're thinking though is it'd be nice to open the invitation up to anyone else in the association who might be interested in getting involved in radio. It's actually a load of fun. And so what we're doing, we're having an open night on Wednesday night of this week, not tomorrow but Wednesday. The station is actually located down in Brighton, and it's just around the corner, not too far away. And from 6 to 7 p.m. we'll have the station open. Andrew and a couple of people might be there to sort of show you how the whole thing works, where people sit, how it works, how it all goes to air, how the show gets sort of put together and operated, and then the show will go live to air at 7 and you're more than welcome to stick around and watch and maybe even be involved in that. So if you ever had an interest in radio, that would be great. What we'd like to do is try to get a few more people involved in it so that we don't have so much concentration and pressure on Andrew and Jay, who's now doing the panel for him, to be there every week or to create the content and manage the content every week. So it'd be nice to have people brought in that might sort of work on a special feature and come and present it, maybe once a month or something like that. So it is loads of fun. So I urge you, if you're interested, to come on. We had Charlie Duke, the 10th man to walk the moon, come in one day and wasn't alive to it at that stage, but we recorded a very, very extensive interview with him, and we put it to air, I think, over 3 weeks. And he was great, very gracious, and it was quite an honour to have him there. So we have some good opportunities to meet and spend time with different people. So our next meeting is Monday the 28th at 7 p.m. We've got a bit of an outline of what we might be doing, but we haven't quite finalised it yet. We might be having our friend David over here talking about his trip to Pinamunda, but the details will come out over the next couple of weeks and we'll forward those out to you. And it'll be a fancy dress day as well. So I think that's all from me. There's no more slides. So
just a quick question. With the Charlie Duke interview, you said that was taped. Can members access that interview?
Yes, if you go to space.southernfm.com.au, there's our Space Association podcast page, and that goes back to 1991. But if you scan through, I think it was 2014 that happened, didn't it, Andrew? We had Charlie in 2014, was it?
Yeah, sorry, I've got people talking.
Yeah, Charlie Duke. 2014, I think we had him on the podcast.
About 2014, yes.
2014. So I
if
think
you
it was
want to
about.
find Charlie Duke, for example,
Yeah.
go to the Space Show webpage and you'll find a list. It says list of names and list of topics.
Okay.
And go to list of names, go down to D for Duke, and you'll find it there. So if you want to know if you've been on, just just. That's not the actual page, is it?
No, but it
This is a link from our
This is
website.
this is on our website, on the association's website, under the Space Show. So it was 2014, and it was an interview. So theoretically,
Yeah, is it October?
something like that.
So all of this stuff is original Space Show content. We don't generally put up stuff from NASA or ESA because what's the point? You can get it from there. So this is our stuff. So myself, Andrew, other people go out and actually get these interviews. And this is our website in case you haven't been there. And if you want to find the information, because it's flashing for some reason, I guess my battery stuck. So yeah, there's details about the Wednesday night. So come along and be a bit of fun on Wednesday. So with that, I think I'll get out of your hair and hand it over to our Ashley. Ashley Hill, who's our IT guru and resident overachiever.
There's your.
Gee, this is uncomfortable. Alright. So there's a lot of stuff going on with Mars at the moment, and it's probably good just to get everyone a bit up to speed about the things that are going on and the architectures that people come up to. So this is the third annual review of the current status of what's going on at Mars, and there's probably a lot more to cover now than there was this time last year. So we're a little bit behind schedule already, so I'm just going to try and smash through all of my slides, and we can that way get to the panel faster. Main thing is when we get to the panel, we've got a couple of topics that we want to discuss. So what are the greatest challenges and potential solutions to building a self-sustaining colony on Mars? And the second target is what opportunities do you see for Australian innovators, scientists and entrepreneurs to journey to Mars? So a bit of universal background on Mars for people who don't know. About 1/3 the gravity of Earth. Every 2 years we have a fuel optimal transfer window. That's when we get close to each other. The atmosphere is really thin. Water boils, but it doesn't actually transition into a liquid. The lightest thing to have landed on Mars softly is the Curiosity rover, which is about 900 kilos, and does have a magnetic field, so there's a lot of radiation and things on the surface, and Earth-based biology isn't expected to survive on the surface. So, I was making up this last night, the current architectures of things that are going on. So there's NASA's Journey to Mars, the Mars Society, Mars Direct and Mars Semi-Direct plans, Mars One, SpaceX's Red Dragon plans, SpaceX's interplanetary transport systems, Mars Society's revisions of the SpaceX plan, Lockheed Martin's Mars Base Camp, Inspiration Mars, which is like a Mars Gemini plan, Buzz Aldrin's Mars Cycler, the International Mars Research Station, and the Mars for Real, which is one of the people we'll talk about tonight. So first off, there's some big rockets coming up. We've got the SLS, kind of NASA, not really. We've got the Falcon Heavy, the ITS, New Glenn, and the Vulcan. So first up, NASA's Journey to Mars. Really, it's in the PowerPoint stage. There's not much information they've given hard about it, but there's actually a lot of NASA projects that are starting to release papers and documents. So the work that they put in 2 years ago to get this started is actually finally starting to come up. One of the key parts that they've introduced for the Journey to Mars was to use the moons for bases of operations. So next one, Mars Direct. So this has been around for quite a number of years now, basically doing direct missions to Mars and direct flights home, minimum possible mass, multiple landing locations. Guy Murphy will be one of the panelists tonight, who is part of the Mars Society, as am I. He's not presenting on the Mars Direct plans, but one of the things that the Mars Society does is the laser. No. Is they built an analogue of the actual habitat, and they've been running that for I think a decade now out in Utah. Mars One, so Dianne's here tonight to talk about, I think her little presentation will be about that. They're starting to get there, not much coming out in terms of publicly, but they've got some good documents and things that they've provided to their candidates. I think Dianne might fill us in a bit more on that. SpaceX's Red Dragon plan, so every 2 years they're planning to land one of their Dragon 2s basically on Mars, giving people, universities, access to the surface and to also let them test their heat shields, retrofitted propulsion, to try and get stuff in there. So they've done a lot of testing with the Dragon V2. They haven't actually launched one to orbit and back yet, but that should be happening. ITS, this is what everyone's been talking about recently. They've got some hardware that they're building, but realistically, it's a monster. I've got some little 3D printed ones there that I can pass around when they actually get to talking about them. SpaceX didn't really talk about what they do actually on the surface. The idea is that people would come up with that themselves. They're providing the capability to get an awful lot of tonnage to the surface and back. Lots of excitement. So there was a few issues that the Mars Society and Robert Zubrin pulled up with their plan. There's big articles and things online, but mostly around how Robert Zubrin thinks they should send less mass to Mars and bring less mass back. In all, it wasn't that big of a deal. Lockheed Martin's Base Camp. This is them using the Orion and SLS to actually, have a plan. I don't think that NASA's actually approved any of it. It's just what they came up with to utilise what's being spent billions of dollars on. Original concept though is that they're just going to use the Orions and have a space station around Mars and do their landings a long time in the future after they've had that, and do teleorbit robotics. Inspiration Mars. This is a Gemini type program where what they're going to do is they're going to send a capsule to Mars and back. It's not going to enter orbit. It's just going to basically fly there, fly home, 2-year mission. They're also looking at that in 2021. There's actually a fluke of orbital mechanics, and they'll be able to visit Venus as well, which I think is quite a good idea. Basically using an Orion and an inflatable transit pad. So the two people that do it are going to be crammed together. Most of the criticisms think that they'll just kill each other. The Mars Cyclone, which is Aldrin and Purdue University, which is basically a big, two big transport vehicles going in a circular orbit around Mars. Because of the way the orbital mechanics works, they do the short duration every 2 years, so they need two. Downside of the Aldrin cycloplan is that any space people that want to transit to or from Mars on it have to go at Mars velocities, and if they screw up or the engine blows up or something, then they'll miss the actual big spaceship. One of the other side things they did with this was that they need to do launches from the moons, so that basically there's less atmospheric, less weather issues, and it makes it a bit simpler to catch up. IMRS, this is from Sean Moss. Basically it's a combination of a bunch of different plans released about 5 years ago. He made the book available online now, so you can just download it. Single base station using drop tanks for the spaceship is actually quite a good plan in my eyes, so something that's reasonably cheap before the before the SpaceX ITS stuff could happen. Mars for Real project. Vince Alder's here to talk about that. Sorry I didn't know anything about it until last night.
So no one can say.
That's right. It's, from what I gather, small lander lands, uses solar to carve out rocks and things to, you can make your own cave, inflate into the cave your inhabit it. Good idea, so we'll listen to him talk about that tonight. Come on, next. Great, crash the computer. So, well, the next thing that's coming up is my presentation. I'm going to talk about the Mars City design talk, and then we'll have Dianne talking about Mars 1. There we go. Guy Murphy talking about the Mars Society Mars 160, which is 2 Australians at the moment at the habitat. Currently, they're going to be there for 160 days, split into 2 sections. Guy will talk about that. Vince Alder will talk about his Mars plan that we're quite interested in. And then Angela will talk about the ITS system. So, Mars City design. Who here's heard of Mars City design and knows what it was? No one. Excellent. So it was run for the first time last year. Basically the concept was that we'd get people starting to creatively think and do things to design what kind of life people would have on Mars and what they'd do to build an actual city. Quite a few entrants of varying quality. Again, I'm going to absolutely blaze through these slides. There's an awful lot of information in it. If you want to watch it in the YouTube video, you can, or I'll have them on my website. Alright. So what was their mission is to do the next step towards living solutions on Mars. 2016, first time it runs. Basically they used challenges, so they gave people a challenge of design a communication systems, design living, design politics, design all kinds of part of surviving. In the end, there wasn't a very clear part at the beginning about what the rewards would be. Ended up having like a special gala with Buzz Aldrin, and he was apparently really, really good there at extending out the entire thing. Red Planet Radio, done by the Mars Society, has a really good interview with the founder, episode 7, so probably have a listen to that. So the team I was on was part of, from Sean Moss's Mars City Design, International Mars Research Station, and we called it the Mars Settlement Research Organisation. Towards the end of the project, we had a bit of issues and we didn't actually submit it. So basically what I'm doing at the moment is I'm collecting all the information that we did do and trying to get it into the competition that started this year. So, same notes, project was never presented, finalised the team. I'm taking some creative license for what I thought was good ideas. Site selection is really, really hard. We probably spent 3 months arguing back and forth about a location and criteria and all that sort of things. We tried to make sure that our solution was going to be logical and didn't involve things like warp drives, and make it engineering as focused as possible. And I'm making an entry for this year, so if you know anything about mining, architecture, caravanning, boating, or like trust funds and things, I'd actually like to talk to you because it's kind of all...
You mean money?
Money. Money's a good thing. So what's some of the highlights, right? So we decided on the name, which I was quite happy with, was Sagan City, obviously with Carl Sagan. Short little video, so best to describe it is to show everyone. So you can just pop that one up. Sorry. Sorry. Alright. Short, minute 40. So basically we chose a double impact crater. It let us do things like put in a nuclear reactor at the bottom of the pool there so we could fill it with water when it's actually domed. It's not overly big. Entry is built into the side of the cliff, so you tunnel in with regular equipment, no boring down. Landing pads, solar panels, all that sort of stuff, and that little bit in the middle is where the dome is starting to get built. We'll just fly it here. Thank you, space engineers, for making such an awesome game that I can use it to do 3D modelling. I knocked this up in about 4 hours last weekend, which, considering everything else, is phenomenal.
You've got a gun.
Space, yeah.
Where's your gun?
Okay, so main concept is we're using a mushroom-based excavation profile underground. So basically people can live and walk. You'll have movement panels along the top so things can actually move from side. That area down the bottom is actually where all the living quarters and things will be, which will be movable containers basically. And the excavation profile lets you use smaller equipment to do it. Long story short, we went through a lot of different ways to make life on to make a base on Mars. We had to drill out and build mine stuff anyway, so we figured we may as well do it. And this ends up being, we found a lot of synergies using turbolift type concept to do it. So these will be all the rest of the slides because I was so happy the video worked. So let's just skip forward. Back to the deck. Yeah, that's my engineer.
You want me to stop it?
Yeah, let's go back to the slide deck. Okay. So location, we decided that we want to make sure we chose something that was going to be close to water, doable size. We're not talking 5 kilometres big domes here. Had some aesthetics. Near the equator, near some interesting research stuff. But actually that wasn't as big of a concern in the end because if we've got access to water, we can make rocket fuel. And that way we shuttle around wherever we wanted. Expansion. And ideally we'd like it not to flood if Mars did get terraformed in 1,000 years. So we had an idea of what latitude we wanted at, but we ended up missing it. So my favourite location was Badger Crater, which was a double terrace crater profile, which means that you have a lower impact point. Ends up being quite north. It was only 710 metres across. Badger Crater is commonly referred to as the Bullseye Crater. And it's actually got in ice. So in terms of excavation and stuff, it would make it a lot easier. Way too much information there for anyone to read. You can look at it in the slide decks later. Basically we came up with a lot of different benefits of doing it in this type of crater. So things could go down. We could have the dome and flood it in the middle and have a nice green area for people to actually enjoy in but not live in. So the excavation of caverns, again, we spent a lot of time, I actually spent a lot of time going into what we do on Earth at the moment with mining and excavation and tunnelling equipment. and learnt far, far too much about it. And in the end, I actually found these things called road headers. You might not have seen them. They look like that one in the bottom right corner. It's a mere 65 tonne. And it's all electric. Can dig 8 metres in any direction, basically. Doesn't need to, can drive forwards and backwards. And the little teeth thing we could make actually on Mars. Obviously 65 tonnes, a bit heavy, but you know, we're clever people.
How do you make the teeth thing?
So the teeth, basically we can make a compactor. So the couple of ways that we came up with for reusing the teeth was making them magnetic, and then on the actual stuff that was coming out, magnetise it up, reform it and recast it, or just take rocks and put 100 tonne on them, because who cares, we don't really care. One of the big things we were really excited about was the turbolift concept, which is actually a real thing. So basically, it's each individual lift cart can move upwards and sideways. Very much Star Trek origins, but it's actually a thing that people are doing now for buildings, because all of a sudden you don't have to have one lift in each lift well, and you can go door to door. So if you're in one building, you can actually go up, across, and into another building and not even ever get out of the lift.
Except the Willy Wonka chocolate factory.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy, but have a look at this company. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. So when we come up with the city itself, because we've got the turbolift concept, we were doing, well, what can we actually also do? We can do bookable facilities, bookable rooms. So if you want to have a dinner with your family, you can book a dining room that's conveniently located next to fridges and all kinds of other colony essential things. So you don't actually have to have your own all the time. So we wanted to make sure it was based around pulling your weight mentality. So everyone would have to participate in cleaning and everything else around the colony. Don't like it, leave. Yeah. Well, that was the thing that Elon Musk said, is that he's offering free rides back to Earth for anyone. So if you go there and you don't like it, you can go home. One of the other concepts we came up with was around having a sister cities built on the Earth and the Moon. We have now a lot of benefits around this, not just in the fact that it lets us train people for a certain period of time, but it lets it be a centre for technology and innovation, and quarantine, so if someone's got the flu, they don't take it to Mars and make everyone sick on the way. You don't have a psychopath deciding he wants to come in, and if they're at the colony for a minimum of a year, they're going to know whether or not they want to go to Mars or not. And with the living quarters, because they were going to be portable, you could in theory have a living quarters on Earth, put it onto the ITS, fly it to Mars, land it on Mars, and you've got your house the whole way. So one of the other things we did was run a lot of numbers. Lots and lots of stuff that we did to try and figure out how much food people need to live realistically too, not like minimum things, but how to have an actual balanced diet where you're not eating bugs all the time, or not, you know, we wanted to make it so that you have excess food to sell to other colonies and spaceships as they come through. We came up with a kind of round number of about 95 metres in the horizontal and a 4 metre vertical per person for agriculture. Again, taking numbers that varying with all the data. For 20,000 people, it ended up being big. We're talking 1.7 kilometres squared of excavated size for 20,000 people. Now, this is probably overkill and doesn't include the dome areas, but it did give a lot of things. It was very interesting trying to figure out, well, how much living space people need, storage space, how much corridors do you have to allocate per person per area, and then trying to figure out all of the actual living stuff there. And then from that we figured out how big this place needs to actually be. Excavation profiles, again, played around a lot with this, and played around with the different sizes and figuring out the costs. For example, with this type of excavation profile, we were looking at 16 million for the drill bits alone, based on some data I managed to acquire from the mining industry about how long the tungsten drill bits work and live, and how much tonnage that is. So the drill bits for mining out something this size alone was over 1,000 tons. Or 55 tonne if you decide that you want to try and make them there with a little bit of extra stuff. This is actually a book that one of the excavation profiles I took from a very, very good resource on subsurface excavations. Basically going down, this is one of the things that we managed to pull through because it gives a lot more living area. It's actually something that people do here. Playing around with different layouts, we're living in circles and lines and all that sort of stuff, and in the end it doesn't matter much to the actual colony. Example of how we had at the beginning, single lander starts drilling. What we couldn't solve, we spent a lot of time on this, is trying to figure out what return on investment we can do for the investors, right? Money's not going to matter to anyone on Mars, but the idea, how do we get the ideas and things that people generate on Mars to turn into capital on Earth, so to either pay back the investors or let the people on Mars buy Earth crap? So that's, to us, is the $1 trillion question. We did come up with a few ideas, some good, some not. So most of the things I was asking about fund managers and things before was to get an investment fund. So whenever someone does go to Mars, they put all their assets into the investment fund, and that then goes on and on to get people. Bad ideas like doing unsafe research, disease research and things like that could be done. Lots of money from the government. So, as I was saying, 2007 registrations are open. They extended the free registration period. I think if you register tonight before you leave, you'll still get it because it's until Sunday in America. But otherwise, it starts to cost. The things they're doing this year is trying to do the transportation, trying to figure out things with robots and energy recycling. That's it. I think Dianne's up next. Any questions, come see me later, and I can go through some of those slides and documents. Yeah, the battery's on the blinking.
I've been invited to chat for about 10 minutes, roughly, to give an update on the Mars One mission and where things are in their progress at the moment. And I was also invited to talk a little bit about my own personal preparations and what I've been doing. I'll stand behind, sorry, I'm here, in readiness for the mission. Now, I'll just highlight up front that at the moment I'm still not a paid employee of Mars One. I'm just someone who's applied for a job. It's a very cool job. So currently, obviously, the content that I'll talk about with regards to Mars One is pretty much all publicly available. If you do a lot of research, you can find out most of this. But I've sort of put a dummy's guide to it, summary for you this evening. So, for most of you will probably be aware, and actually highlighted, this is the one-way mission concept, and the idea about Mars One putting forward as a one-way mission is because they believe it's more feasible that way. It reduces costs, and technically it's something which is achievable in a shorter time frame, because many of the technologies to get to Mars and potentially survive on Mars, either if they don't exist now, they're already in development. So theoretically it makes it more viable than a return mission, which as we know has a lot more technical challenges because of the need to come back. Some of the challenges obviously would be around refueling and launch and so forth. Without any sort of ground support there on planet, the first return missions, there's a lot more risk around that. So Mars One, they originally put out information about the mission in 2011, 2012, and put forward their mission plan. And like many other large-scale missions that are space exploration things about, so they've had a couple of slippages by 2 years here and there, and that's, as you all know, I mentioned before, because of where the planets are and their orbits, you can only get to Mars efficiently every couple of years, about every 26 months roughly. So Mars, anytime you have a slippage of any particular milestone, it does push out the whole mission by a couple of years. So we see at the moment, Mars One's current schedule is to have as you can see up there, the crew training commencing next year, and the first of the technical missions, which is the demo and lander mission, in 2020 or so. Now that demonstration lander mission is something which they've already had. It's the first contract with Lockheed Martin to look at some concept design work on that, and that was done back in 2013. I'll touch on that there. I'll do a quick summary. So 2013 saw Lockheed Martin be engaged to have some initial review on what could be done there. Same thing with the satellite technology, because the first lander mission that's scheduled is going to be looking at some of the life support aspects about can they extract water from the soil, is it possible to generate oxygen from that, what about the current solar technology. As we know, solar power is quite effective on Mars. We already know there's a number of rovers there, especially Opportunity, that's been working quite efficiently for a prolonged period of time, well over a decade, using purely solar power. But of course that technology is quite old now. So this is the concept is to test some of the thin film PVs to see what is the most efficient ones that could be used in this for the next, I suppose, generation of solar power for Mars. So that's part of that first mission. And one of the other things that they did, and I sort of mentioned here on the slide, in the other items of significance, in 2015, Mars One announced the winners of a university competition where there was a competition to see what sort of extra payload could be on this mission, and the winners were a group that put together something called SEED. And SEED is about germination of seed and the development of a seedling, something which has not yet been done on Mars. So this is quite a novel thing. So some of the highlights most recently, Mars One have done a lot of their work mostly behind the scenes in the Phase A stage, the missing concept stage that they're at the moment, which has been a lot of concept design studies. So I mentioned Lockheed Martin's initial work there, but the biggest stuff which has been published that most people have heard about or seen is the Paragon life support system paper, which was, even though they were contracted back in 2013 and completed the work in 2013 because of ITAR, it didn't manage to get published till 2015 because the US regulations don't allow, it's an IP aspect, some things to necessarily be released publicly. As we know, Paragon do the life support systems for the Orion capsule and other NASA projects too, so I'm sure there are some things that they do not necessarily want to have publicly known. And that's the same sort of situation with the spacesuit system. Paragon have assessed Mars One's spacesuit design, and that was completed back in 2013. But once again, that's been sitting with ITAR for quite some time. So we expect that'll be the next sort of thing we'll eventually see released once the US government have been quite comfortable with that to progress. Obviously, from that, we'll see a change of budgets and plans. Like most people who work in large-scale projects, once you've got your first concept design revised, then it's a case of through the whole plan. I mean, the original $6 billion that was forecast for this was based on having initial scoping meetings with a lot of these major space technology companies to work out what would it cost, and now they're getting down to some details. What are the costs now? And with the Paragon life support system, some of the things that were brought forward were the challenges of managing some of the aspects of, say, spare parts. For example, having to have 3D printing all your spare parts ideally managed by 3D printing, managing extra mass that wasn't originally forecast, how's that going to work, what are you going to trade off, and cost is usually one of the things that comes up with that. So we'll see what comes through from the next round of Phase B studies from there. but everything always relies on funding, which is why I put a little box up there on funding. We know that Mars One has managed to raise over $1 million to date just from donations, merchandise, and public funds. They've also done a lot of private investment rounds too, so we know that that's occurred and that continues to occur. We know that Mars One's also announced that their next plans are to list on the stock exchange, which changes the game again. It's really interesting to see how that progresses, so I'm looking forward to that sort of information as it moves forward. One of the things that I'm really interested in as well is the Food for Mars research. Now, I'm not going to go into it in great detail, but even though the concept for Mars One at the moment is that they plan to have their food production system in a hydroponic system indoors, supported by insects and algae. So this essentially a closed loop system that sort of manages itself, with obviously humans supporting it. But what they've also been doing on the side since 2013 is they've been supporting research at a university in the Netherlands, where they've been seeing what could be grown in soil simulants from Martian and Moon soil simulants. So it's really quite fascinating to see that they've been able to produce tomatoes, peas, green beans, radishes, potatoes, of course. Naturally. Potatoes. They've all been shown to be successful in production, and even they've been able to do some seed germination tests too. So seeds that are developed from plants grown in Martian soil simulant have been able to be regrown from the seeds that have been harvested. So that's very good. And most recently this year they published some data illustrating that from the soil simulant from Mars, the plants did not take up a lot of the heavy metals, which is obviously something. It's fine to grow stuff, but if you can't eat it, what's the point? So this looks like it potentially illustrates that there may be the possibility to be able to grow food in Martian soil, but naturally that won't be able to occur outside because plants still need air. But you have some very lovely pot plants inside, and not just have hydroponics potentially over time. So just moving forward, the bit that obviously I'm a bit more familiar with than a lot of the technology, because that's with satellites and Lockheed and so forth, it's the selection process. Now, we're at the moment, the point and selection is we're in the round 3 period. So we started off with over 202,000 people that commenced application process, but and that eventually got trimmed down to 1,058 from the first round of selection, which was an application process. And so application, video application, and some psychological profiling. You can imagine psychological profiling is an important part of this. And then we went and had a whole lot of medical tests done, same sort of medical tests as pilots go through, not too dissimilar to that NASA put their the original candidates through, that go through from their program as well. And that trimmed us down to 706, who went, eventually 663 went to interview, which was 15-minute Skype interview with the head of selection, which is Dr. Norbert Kraft. And Dr. Kraft used to work for NASA with a lot of their long-duration space flight programs for their crews, and also JAXA as well. And was involved with the Mars 500 program. So everyone knows that Russian program. He was involved with that as well. So he's got quite a bit of experience on trying to put together the people side of things. And so he trimmed us down to the 100 we are today. And so the 100 are 50 men and 50 women. We're from about 34 different countries around the world. And age range currently sits between around 21 to 63. So a really diverse group, fascinating group of people. And of course 63 is not the eldest to go to space. We know that it's 77. So, sorry?
21, certainly young.
Yes, well, it's quite young, but the concept is not to have the first human mission until about 2026, after about 8 technical missions in advance of that, which will be sending up all of the supplies in advance, the landing modules in advance for it, all the life support and so forth. So the two young women, 21, one's from India, Shraddha, doing engineering, and the other's a Queensland girl, Taya, they'd be 31. So if they were selected in the crew. So we're about to hit round 3, and what round 3 will entail, watch this space. We understand that it's going to occur sometime next year, and we'll be, the 100 of us will be in teams of 10, and as those teams of 10, we have to self-organise into those teams of 10. we've been asked to do that already. We've already been doing that, and we are in our teams essentially already. And they have to be gender diverse, age diverse, and culturally diverse. So it's a really fascinating process to do this by ourselves. And what we're going to be going through when we get together is up to 5 days worth of various challenges to see how well we play with others. So far the selection process has been all about individual merit. Do you have the right sort of skills or ability and so forth, and the right attitude? And now it's about can you work together with other people in challenging situations? At the end of each day of the selection process, what they're going to do, Mars One will kick out 10 to 20 people from the pool, and each day we need to then self-organise into new teams to commence the rest of the challenges. So then they'll trim us down to about 40 people at the end of that, and go through to round 4, which will be isolation. So test us in isolation to see how well we go under duress, to trim us down to the final 24. And those 24 would be 6 crews of 4, and they will go through up to around 10 years of training to get ready for the mission. But 10 years, it's a lot of training, and there's a lot to learn because, of course, this is really, you think about establishing a new society on Mars, you're going to need not just your own technical skills that you might have already, but you're going to have to learn everything else too, everything from IT to electronics, other aspects of engineering as well, plumbing, whatever. And so I started thinking about this when I made my selection, the first round of selection, and I thought, well, I know what Mars One's looking for, and I knew that I had a little bit of way to go there. So I started working on some of this from the same sort of approach that Mars One is looking at when it comes to their training program when it starts. So technical training, personal training, and team training. I started doing stuff around that. And so some of that technical training, because the first cruise when they get to Mars, what they're going to be doing? Construction. A whole lot of construction, growing food, which that's fine, that's an area I have a bit of experience in. But also research too. I'm doing a PhD, so I've got 4 university degrees, and so research, not a problem. But I didn't have any technical skills, so I thought I needed to become a thoroughly modern and accomplished woman. And I recently learned to weld. I welded that. That's that lamp you can see in the right hand side corner. I cut the metal into Mars One shape, and I welded all the pieces together in the back, and that's so yes, I went and taught myself how to weld, and I've been learning other metalwork skills and 3D printing skills. So I'm starting to play around with new things because I think they might be quite useful. It doesn't hurt to get a leg ahead on things. I also do a lot of speaking at schools too. One of the opportunities I think that being a part of the Mars One candidate pool presents is you can go and do some great science outreach at schools to get kids excited about space, about science, STEM, especially girls. If we can have more women doing engineering or maths and IT and that, I think that would be a wonderful thing. And so if I have a chance to inspire any young kids to follow this sort of pathway, then that's a fantastic thing. But I'll just sort of start to wind up and hand over to Guy in a sec. The one thing that I have probably the most control over is one of the biggest challenges, and that's around human health. So I know when I first heard about the mission, I did a lot of research on what an astronaut would face, what are the biggest health risks, and mental health is one of them. And I see a psychiatrist every couple of months to go through a mental health program where we start working on increased personal resilience. In fact, I saw her this afternoon. And I'm also doing work on other physical aspects too. And we know one of the biggies is bone. We know that astronauts lose large amounts of bone mass through being in space. So they can lose up to about 20% of bone mass in a 6-month period in space, which happens to be the exact same amount as a woman who goes through menopause over 3 to 5 years. So you might have noticed I'm a woman. That's a bit of a giveaway. So that one's going to happen. If I get the other one, that's a bit of a double whammy. So I thought, no, I don't like that idea at all. So I started working with a PT, an endocrinologist, GP, and so forth to work out, can I build some extra bone now, increase my baseline, so that if I do get to go to space, that's fine. I can afford to lose some. And of course, even if I don't get it out of space, it's going to make menopause a lot easier too. So that's what I've been doing. I've actually managed to increase my bone mass by nearly 17% over the last 12 months. And I've got appointed with my endocrinologist actually Wednesday, to check out our latest DEXA to see how it's looking and if it's still tracking quite well. So that's what most of my activities been just on the side when I'm not doing my PhD, is speaking to kids and doing a lot of work on health and nutrition to try and put myself in the best place today for tomorrow. And whether that's on this planet or another one, I think it's a win-win situation. So hopefully it was a super quick, useful update on what's going on with Mars One. Happy to respond to any questions about it as best as I can, and obviously happy to talk about any personal stuff as well. So I'll hand over to you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dianne. I've been asked to tell you a bit about what's current in the Mars Society and in particular Mars Society Australia. So I thought I'd tell you about an expedition that two of our members are currently involved with that's pretty exciting, and it's one of the longest duration missions that I think Australians have participated in to date. So it's the Mars 160 mission, which is in fact two missions, two simulated Mars missions that are being run. One is being held in Utah, and it commenced in late September and will run for 80 days. And the other will be run in Devon Island in northern Canada next year in Southern Hemisphere winter. So now, just to tell you a little bit more about what Mars 160 is about, a quick overview. It's an international cruise involved. List there with some names and nationalities. It's running with quite a detailed science program of objectives that they're going to pursue over the course of the mission. It's being run as a full-on Mars simulation, in the sense that they've arrived there, and once the mission starts, I think nearly all the crew members, I think possibly Shannon and maybe another or two, aren't going to do the full simulation just for practical reasons. But most of the crew will be operating in full simulation, so they want to go outside of the habitat at the Mars Research Station. They have to put on spacesuits and so on and go out and do their field research and come back inside. And they don't have real-time voice contact. They've got internet, which has got a bit of delay, but it's a pretty lousy connection, as you'll get on Mars. So we're looking at quite a long duration mission with this crew, and it's a very talented and quite diverse crew. It's obviously been chosen in support of the science program. We've got a mixture of some quite high-level scientific skills there and engineering skills, but also other skills that enrich the mission in different ways. And you'll notice it's a mixture of nationalities, which again is something you'd expect on a real Mars mission. A number of these crew members I know have actually been on expeditions before, which is kind of an interesting thing and a valuable thing for missions to extreme environments and long duration missions. So you sort of get to tune into each other, know how each other operates, and learn to get along before you go on a trip such as this. For example, Jonathan Clark and Shannon Rupert were on an expedition to the same place in 2003, which I was on as well. So they sort of know each other, and that's a valuable investment for sort of encouraging and ensuring you have a good social dynamic on the expedition. I'd better just tell you a bit more about what this place is like they've gone to. Oh, introducing our two Australians, by the way. On the left is Dr. Jonathan Clark, who's the president of the Mars Society Australia. He's based in Canberra. He's a geologist. He's been on a lot of expeditions to Mars-like environments. He's been on simulations to the Mars Desert Research Station since 2003. On the right is Annalena Clark, who's from Melbourne. She's a PhD student at RMIT and an artist, and she's got a program of art projects that she's brought with her, and is also doing a whole lot of other things in support of the expedition while she's there. So we have a Melburnian participating in this.
Is there any significance to the fact that that's the same colour they wear on Guantanamo Bay?
No, they are. Don't read too much into that. I think yes. So let's just a bit more about what the Mars Desert Research Station is. I think you all know where Utah is. There's a little dot on the map. I never really appreciated until I went there that the landscape where the cartoon Wood Runner is set is actually a real place. With those mesas and the cactuses and all that stuff. It's a real environment, and this shows you the different elements of the Mars Desert Research Station. You've got it's the main habitat on the far left. There we go. Living unit. And to the right of that, you've got the greenhouse. That's a rebuilt one. I think the older one burnt down. It's not actually growing food for the mission, but little science experiments going there. There's an observatory there in the distance, and that's apparently a big new laboratory. This arrangement with the pressurised tubes allows you to go out from the side door from the hatch to go to these places without having to suit up, which makes things a bit more convenient. That's a solar array that's been put up quite recently. They're the installation trucks. I think there's a generator there behind. So you've got power sources. You've got this doesn't pretend to be a precisely engineered Mars base with fully pressurised habitats to perfect engineered tolerances and so on. What it aims to do is broadly replicate the infrastructure and living spaces so you can conduct simulated Mars missions in a place and gain insight into the various issues you'll face in reality when you go to Mars. So you do rehearsals at this kind of place. And it is actually quite effective at doing that. It isn't precisely engineered, but that's something that is not so critical in this kind of research. And this little plan of what's inside. The lower level, which you see on the left, has got the diameter of this is about 8 metres, and it's actually quite roomy inside. You've got a very big lab set up on one side. You've got the space suit at the airlock here, an emergency airlock on the other side, bathroom. So there is a workshop there on the lower level. The upper level, you have a tiny little bedroom each for each of the crew members. So there's privacy, and that's a very, very important thing for people keeping their sanity on these sorts of missions in sort of stressful situations. And you've got a nice big living area here that's got a bit of kitchen on the side and sort of workspaces and a big table, which is sort of very much the focus of the social life of the whole mission. And there's a little view inside. And when I saw this, I was shocked to see all these comfortable plush couches. But where did they come from? It's like it's been upgraded quite a bit since I was there. And got a very nice stove, and, bigger fridge and everything. So it's actually they were just finishing a bit of a refurbishment when they all arrived. There's John Clark on the right and the different crew members. So after the initial settling in period and sort of getting everything organised, they've started their science program, and the day typically involves heading out and undertaking science missions. Some of the crew members, there we go, there's some simulated spacesuits, and they suit up and they head out. And they're facing, in trying to do field geology, whatever it is they're doing out, they face a whole lot of constraints with using spacesuits, which is part of the whole purpose of it. It's an amazing environment that it's in. I've never been to a place before where there's absolutely no green whatsoever. got this place. It is truly alien, and the nature of the landscapes. A lot of this stuff is really powdery clay, and it's dead quiet as well, which is another thing you get in space. It's quite a dramatic setting. You get dust storms as well sometimes, with whirlwinds. This is what they're doing during the day, and they're not all out on something. This crew at home doing support, doing the washing, doing the cleaning, doing the cooking, all that sort of stuff you have to do, writing reports, analysing samples they collect, keeping the science productive, and so on. One of the things I concluded when I was on an expedition in 2003 was that it's perhaps overstating it, but I think 90% of the success of the mission depends on getting the food right. Because being in an environment like this is very demanding physically. You've got to eat well, but it's also important for morale. They've got a lot of. They obviously can't have fresh food. It all gets delivered, and they have to foods. Try to come up with as much of a variety as they can. What I think they're doing a fabulous job at is using the international diversity of the crew as a great point of sort of cultural connection and sharing and exchange. And I'm quite amazed. There's an online blog, and they're coming up with the most incredible food. There's a food blog with recipes they're coming up with. That's Japanese space food. I think that's an eggplant thing. That doesn't look like heart-shaped food to me. That looks really nice. French crew member made croissants in the last few days. It's pretty incredible. There's some Indian cuisine. They are, the act of cooking and eating together and washing up. It's a communal activity, and it's a good time for everyone to sit together and look at each other and talk and interact and share information, tune into how everyone's feeling, and get on the same wavelength. Now I'll show you a little something. Just before Annalie went from Melbourne, I got together a little bundle of things for her to take, and I put a lot of thought to this because she had only a small amount of space to take, and whatever I got her was going to need to last the whole mission, the whole 80 days. So, her other crew members don't know I've got this, so you'll keep quiet. It's a secret. One of the things that's really important, there's a great book by Jack Stuster called Bold Endeavours, where he goes and looks at all the human factors, the issues that come up in long duration missions to hard places, and he touches on a whole lot of things, and one of them is it's really good to have celebrations every so often to break the monotony and keep things interesting. So Annalie's got a birthday while she's away, so I've got birthday candles, balloons, party happening. Obviously the Vegemite, the cultural exchange there. Little things you might add to a party just to make dessert a bit more interesting. So some hundreds and thousands. Food colouring, lightweight, but Annalie's an artist, she may end up using it for watercolours, and that's fine as well. But just to add a bit of variety to the diet, that's icing for writing on things. So if they have another crew member has a special occasion, she can write on, they'll make some cakes and write on. So, and that's for next Tuesday of next week. Little bottle of champagne from Melbourne Chapter. So their cards, 52 scenes in Melbourne. So they can play cards, but she can also show other crew members images of Melbourne, and she might want to cut them up and turn them into an art project, I don't know. But, they're only a third of the way through the mission so far, so there's been sort of an initial settling in phase, but it'll take on a bit of a different dynamic as they go through the second, third, and so on. And there may be new stresses that emerge, and so on.
Is the weather pretty stable for the period of time of year?
It'll steadily get colder. One of the things that's a bit deceptive looking at the pictures of the environment there is that it's, if you think back to what I showed you earlier, that's an alpine desert, it's not hot. You're going to think desert's hot, but it's actually like it's cold, it's quite alkaline. So this does get very cold in winter, which is extra stress. So it's something I'll have to adjust to. And then next year they'll finish in December. Next year they'll do them again in Canada, in the Mars Society's other research station in Devon Island, and the same crew as well, but in a different setting. I told John Clark I was sort of going to tell you a little bit about this tonight, and asked if he'd like to send you all a message. So I'm just going to quickly read it out to you all. Across the Gulf of Space, from the desolate surface of Utah, the Australian crew members of the Mars 160 expedition send their greetings to the Space Association of Australia. The Mars 160 expedition shows how volunteers can make a contribution to developing the tools for long-duration planetary surface exploration in the areas of science, technology, human factors, operations, and astrobiology. We look forward to our return in December and sharing our experiences with you before going to Devon Island for the second half of the expedition. John Clark and Emily Beatty. So, on that note, I'll show you where to read more. That's the URL to go to, and you can follow their daily blog and look at the food and wish you were there.
Shall I turn it up and down again, sir?
I don't want anything.
Right, superb. Oh, yes. Right, thanks guys, that was awesomely interesting. So, I haven't done a presentation for ages, I think since school, so I might be a little bit nervous, so please bear with me. Yeah, first of all, thank you Mike for inviting me. I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys, because there's a lot of space knowledge in this world, and I've got an idea and it needs critiquing quite badly. So, I'm Vince, bit of science, geek, a bit software-y. I actually made the first app store ever, I think, back in 2000. So you could say I invented it. A lot of people saw it. Anyway, I could have been rich if I stuck with that, but I ended up doing this instead. So, anyway, yeah, Mars. Thanks to NASA and SpaceX, we're going to be able to send people very soon. I'm not talking about the BFR or the Interplanetary Transporter, but yeah, how much is it going to cost? This is often overlooked. Yeah, if there were a lot of people with $1 billion sticking out of their pocket, a lot of plans would have happened. Unfortunately, they're not. So, yeah, bear with the cheesy animations. So yeah, Falcon Heavy, $150 million, and that'll be 1.5 tons soft landed on the surface of Mars. So it works out about $100,000 a kilo. So to put that in perspective, that's actually $20,000 for a packet of crisps. So if you want to put something in Mars, imagine making it out of gold twice, and then you're almost at how much it's going to cost to get it there. It's a lot. So, I'm touching myself. So, right, let's have a quick look at Mars. So, on the equator, excuse me, there we go. On the equator, maximum temperature is 30 degrees, which is actually very comfortable, so we don't need to cool ourselves. That's awesome, because cooling ourselves is very hard. Minimum temperature is minus 90. It's a little bit chilly. So, just think of now, boiling point, a little bit further, and going the other way. That's not comfortable. So average temperature is minus 20. So that's worth thinking about. Yeah, there's obviously no atmosphere, so radiation's an issue, and so are micrometeorites. Okay, I'm going to flashing battery symbol here. Right, how are we going to keep ourselves warm is the first issue. So, let's have a little bit of a competition, make things interesting. Curiosity rover, our latest bit of kit on Mars, powered by a thermonuclear electric cell, which sounds kind of cool, sounds a bit like Star Trek. So let's have that versus a little bit of mine our sheet. their little stuff that hopefully everyone's going to be passing around. So 1 square metres worth of Mars sheet versus the power cell on Curiosity rover. The output of the power cell on Curiosity rover is 100 watts. The output of the energy reflected from the sun from Mylar sheet is 500 watts for 12 hours a day when the sun's up. So that's an average of 250 watts. And obviously that's 2.5 times better. When you look at the weight difference, this is the interesting bit, 45 kilos for the Mars Curiosity power cell. So that's over $5 million to get on Mars. For Mylar sheet, $1,000 per square metre. So the bit of Mylar sheet you're holding in your hands now, if you've got one, that would cost you, I was trying to remember this, I think $10, yeah, $10 to get that on the surface of Mars. And that gives you 5 watts a day for 12 hours, generally when you need electricity. So that's a big difference. So yeah, that's 5,000 times better. So Mylar's winning, basically. So why don't we use Mylar? Anyone? I was hoping someone was going to cut me down. Right, so it doesn't keep us warm overnight, let alone when there's a dust storm on Mars, which is a big issue. That's why Mylar always gets cut out. Interestingly, you can see on the slide, you can actually see the surface of Mars more or less through the dust storm. So when you're on the surface of Mars, you still actually get sunlight coming through, which is very useful. So yeah, if we can figure out how to use the amazing energy we can get from Mylar, we've harnessed a huge amount of energy if we just get over that hurdle. Right, so habitat. Now we're going to go with Mylar. Assume we've decided, right, we're going to use Mylar. If we modify the Mylar so we can focus the energy we're reflecting from the sun, it might make it 10 times heavier. It could make it 100 times heavier. It'll still be 1% the weight and cost of a thermonuclear power cell, which pretty much all the HAB designs use so far. So, what would it look like? This is a phenomenal heat capacity, but it isn't actually scary. It actually, when you look at the thermodynamics, it actually works really well. So we've actually fixed that we can use now the Mylar reflective sheet, which is phenomenally powerful. We can use that to heat our habitat, which is awesome because we saved a shitload of money. So how much can we cut out if we're going to carve the habitat out of solid rock, just from like a Mylar reflector? How much rock can we actually cut out? Well, it's simple. We just basically get this. How much energy you need to heat 1 cubic metre by 1 degree C. You need to get up to about 1200 to melt it. So, funnily enough, it takes about 24 kilowatt days. So in 1 day, with a 10 square metre reflector, we can melt pretty much a cubic metre of rock. Now, obviously, we're not looking at the heat dissipating away, and at that temperature, we will have heat dissipating away pretty quickly. But that'll make it, what, half a cubic metre, which is a phenomenal amount of rock. So if you're carving grooves to cut bricks out of rock, which you can do quite easily, which my next slide was going to show, you can cut out a phenomenal amount of rock. So this was just an example to show you, but we're not going to need a reflector that big. It's not going to take very long to heat up our rock. And we're going to have no problem staying warm. And the way the thermodynamics work, all the energy you put in the rock it's building up like a source. So the more, if you double the amount of energy you put into the rock, you halve the amount of energy that seeps through. So it's a bit like, as time goes on, you're constantly putting energy into the rock. So even if you completely lose your reflector, you're going to stay warm for ages. If you've been heating that habitat for years, you can lose your reflector. It's going to take you a few months before you think, has someone turned the heating off? and you're going to be fine. You'll be comfortable for quite a while. After that, you'll be uncomfortable, but you're not going to die. So it's phenomenal heat capacity in the rock. Right, so food and air. Everyone knows Mars missions. You know, you get some greenhouse on the surface of Mars. You got your plants on there. They're going to make your food and your air. No problems. That's just not going to work. It's just not, the physics doesn't add up. To keep one Earth atmosphere in that greenhouse, it would have to be strong enough so that you could turn it upside down on Earth and support a column of water 10 meters high. So it would have to be phenomenally strong. And it's going to be heavy. Yeah. So that's why, I'll get to the other mission plans in a second, but that's why you don't, in realistic mission plans, you just don't see that. I think that's why the Mars One people are using indoor hydroponics. Yeah, it's just phenomenally expensive. It works out cheaper to bring a lot of crisps. You know how expensive those are. So, right, I think I've got a couple of videos in here. So water, we can do something cool without reflective mylar sheet. We're going to have to bring a couple of posable mirrors so the rover can use its arm to reflect the beam of light, energy that we're going to reflect from the sun with our reflector, so that it can obviously cut out the rocks, cut out the bricks from the rocks. To get water, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is move away the surface till you get to the water ice below. You just focus your light onto that water ice. Like I was saying, like what somebody was saying. So that will, when it vaporizes, it will condense immediately. So you can just collect it easily. You can put some rock kind of grid thing to collect it. You can carve that out of rock, so that's pretty sweet. Rocket fuel. In the States, they actually have a process where they focus sunlight onto a small point, and it breaks the chemical bonds with the carbon dioxide in the air, and there's not much in the air on Earth. It breaks the chemical bonds. They reattach to form ethanol. So you basically put it in a tank, stick it in a rocket, piss it out the back, boom, all those chemical bonds reattach, all that energy makes it go up. So because we're getting so much energy from the sun, we can produce a lot of fuel. So that's pretty handy, weight-wise. Communications, very important to have high bandwidth communications with the Mars Hub. Everybody knows how communications work. You get a tiny little transceiver, bit of electronics there, and a freaking huge great dish. So where are we going to get a dish, eh? That works out quite well. Electricity, as you saw, even in a dust storm, you can see the surface of Mars. So we can use a reflector to focus any sunlight at any panels, solar panels, so we can create electricity even in a dust storm. Chairs, where are we going to get chairs from? We can carve them out of rock, as we can tables, as we can beds. You might want an inflatable mylar mattress. As we can shelves, bowls, ovens, that's handy. Pipes, you can actually carve pipes out of rock, because the process of melting it, you're going to have an obsidian surface, which is going to be like glass. So it's going to be non-reactive, it's going to be waterproof, it's going to be very handy. You can even make taps, which sounds weird. They don't look anything like your tap at home, nothing at all. All you need is two flat surfaces, one of them coated with rubber, inside the flat surface, which is at the end of the pipe. So, I might have to explain that later, but you can do that. It's not a problem. It looks very weird, but it works. So you just save yourself a lot of crisps there as well. So basically, you can do pretty much everything like you need to survive and live not do a lot of science stuff. You'll have to bring your science equipment, but you can do pretty much everything with this reflective sheet, and it's very, very cheap. It's a bit of a Swiss Army knife of space stuff. And like Robert Zubin from the Mars Society said a long time ago, if you're going to do Mars, because it's so expensive, you have to travel light, live off the land. And when he came up with his Mars Direct plan, they didn't really have robotics capable of doing this stuff. Now we do, fortunately. So what will it look like? Here's a slightly bigger hill, cut away. So you're going to have to excuse these graphics, they're not as impressive as Ashley's. So yeah, capsule lands. Out comes the rover. It's going to check the rock, find a nice solid bit with a seismic resonator and a microphone. If it doesn't get too many dispersive echoes back, it knows it's good solid rock. So once it's found that, it's going to inflate the big reflector. I've put the 10 meter squared one here, even though, yeah, we need that. So first thing, it carves an entrance. Then it carves a couple of airlocks up, which is quite easy to make because you can actually carve the doors again out of rock. You just need two smooth surfaces, one on the door, one on the entrance below, and it's just a thin film of rubber. And that's the weight of it pushing down. It's going to be fine because you're not going to have a high pressure air at this end. You're always going to have the high pressure air above, pushing it down, and the gravity as well. So that's fine. Yeah, so you carve a couple of airlocks. Yeah, space at the top. Now this bit here I should explain, because you can focus so much energy from the sun, it's going to be very easy to melt sand. It melts at, yeah, like 1,000 degrees. It's pretty easy. Melting iron ore, it's a little bit harder. It's not undoable. But you know that sand is the easy one. So if you wanted to, you could melt sand and make the airlock doors out of glass. You could try that if you wanted to. It's up to you. So yeah, the rover can cut obviously a lot more space. This time using stairs. You don't need to use these tubes if you're not doing airlock stuff. So it can use stairs, and it can create as much space as you want. So you can create those spaces with planting beds. So then it can pop out, scoop up some dirt from some old riverbed, chuck it inside, get a load of water, as we discussed, drop it in the planting beds, a bunch of seeds. It's not difficult, it's not expensive, it's not heavy. If you have a problem making the glass, you can just grab windows from the capsule. And yeah, if things go well with the glass, you can make a much easier airlock with using the glass doors as that, or use the heat shield from the capsule. Then after that, pretty much last thing, if you burrow down deep enough, obviously you've got a freezer, because obviously the average rock temperature is -20, we're heating that up to around 20 degrees. It's going to take a while for that heat, like we've seen, to dissipate down to here. So we can have a freezer there that's going to last a good few years. When it does eventually get too hot, obviously we just carve another one deeper. And if you're doing fuel, you can quite easily go down deep enough to carve a spherical-ish shape hole. You want to kind of squash because of the greater pressure going down and the pressure of the tank pushing up. You want the pressure to be more pushing up and down instead of sideways. So yeah, you can create a tank even out of just Kevlar. So you don't need the huge iron tanks or really heavy tanks. If you look at the NASA mission plans, you'll see on the ISRU 90% of the weight of the tanks. They are really heavy. So if you have the rock, actually you've got all that weight pushing down. You don't need the structure of the tank. Yeah, you don't need it strong enough to hold in all that pressure, because you've got the pressure of the rock pushing down. So yeah, that should work a treat. Guy, you're looking not impressed. What's the matter? Oh, okay, I thought you were down in that. Yeah, if anyone's not sure about anything, just kind of butt in and go on.
How does the rover harness the power of the reflective energy?
So you'd have to leave a couple of mirrors. So you make your habitat So you basically got that big reflector there, that's the main gubbins. You can have a couple of mirrors that you can place around, and the rover will, I reckon, just have one mirror, if you like, there. So if the mirrors are just set up to constantly direct the beam straight in, so this thing here will obviously turn and follow the sun. Place the beam directly there, maybe possibly onto a reflector up here. That's something else. So you just aim to have like a beam going straight down there. So that will do the following of the sun. The rover will do the reflecting of the beam to cut the rock out. Yeah, that makes sense. Go on.
I don't think it's enough just to actually redirect the beam, because there's going to be a focal point.
Yeah. So obviously you can change the focus of the mylar lens here. You could have, so that's obviously going to be a concave edge. You could have a convex edge. You could even have like an active optics mirror, something that they use in astronomy a lot. So you can kind of have it curved the other way, so you almost get a straight beam of light. So yeah, it shouldn't be too hard. Any other questions? Go on.
What's the temperature profile into the rock on Mars? Because it gets
hot,
as
so
you go deeper, it gets hotter on Earth.
Oh, you mean from the geothermic gradient sort of thing? I think they did some research. It's good. You have to go down a long way for it to, be affected by that. I think it's about, on Earth I do check it out. I think it goes up 25 degrees every kilometre. Somebody else might know that. But on Mars it's a lot less. So it's not going to really affect much, because it takes so long for us to heat the rock there. The energy dissipating down is just going to take ages. So
do we know what the core temperature is? Is there actually a heat flow out of the planet?
It's colder than Earth, but it's not going to change things massively. It's not going. It's going to. We know that it's going to be -20, like average rock temperature, around that, and get hotter as you go down. But I think that there's a lot of people debating that at the moment. I don't know who to believe, and I don't think it makes a huge difference, to be honest.
Vince, we're going to have to wrap up.
Okay, all right. Shall I quickly finish up, or?
Very quickly.
Yeah, okay, right. So, if you want to, we can cut a big heat mass in the centre. That's handy. So, the important thing, let's get that. So, comparing it to other plans, you've got live what you're flying, mechanically mining a habitat, 3D printing a habitat from an inflatable habitat, which is a good one. This one's actually getting a lot of attention in NASA at the moment. It's living in ice. Obviously, it's very cold. You can't make toilet seats out of ice or showers and stuff. And as for ovens, I think it's going to end up like a freezer. So, quickly comparing habitats. You have Earth, your house on Earth. The other habitats, this one for Mars real. So, sunlight. Nobody wants to live in a dingy cave. You actually get more sunlight inside, because we're reflecting so much sunlight from the reflector. You're going to have more sunlight inside than you will on your house on Earth. Meteorites, obviously very well protected because you're very deep down. Radiation, this is another important thing. You're actually better protected from radiation in the habitat there than you are on Earth, because you've got a minimum of 15 meters of rock above you. It's the equivalent of Earth's atmosphere is equivalent to about 5 meters, so that's great. Temperature, you're going to have more consistent temperature in that habitat. Food and air, obviously not as good as Earth, you can't beat that, but still pretty good. The ice habitat is the only habitat model here that you can actually grow your own food and air from plants. But it's going to be very cold, so plants don't grow very well there. Electricity and water, obviously not as good as Earth. You've got to put in there. Comms, it's going to be pretty good because we've got that big dish. Right, okay, I think I might wrap it up now. If anyone's got any questions, I don't know if you want to find me some now or at the end maybe. No? Good, right. So if anybody's got any suggestions or they think I'm crazy in any way, please let me know. I don't want to waste my time with this. So yeah, and yeah, if anybody knows or can put me in touch with anyone who would be helpful with this plan, let me know, because it does seem to work really well. It seems like a very awesome habitat for a very small amount of money, which is quite interesting if you really want to go to Mars.
Just a comment. You kept using terms like it's easy, it's not difficult.
Yeah.
I'd probably contend it is extremely difficult.
Okay, well, so when I'm talking about easy, I'm talking about cost. Again, because it's very easy. You know, we went to the moon. We made a little space house on the Earth, flew it to the moon, came back. Left a few bits. Mars, you've got to be smarter because it's so expensive to get stuff to Mars. It works out a lot cheaper to, so do that stuff. It's basically just software. So the rover is basically like spot welding kind of software. You don't have to modify it much. So it uses existing technologies. The technology readiness level is quite easy. It's just not being done with light.
Yeah, so I guess you could test this by going out to Utah with a 10 square metres a mile and
well, I've actually got we're going to head over to the desert actually and start trying to melt some rocks, which is going to be interesting. So the maths all adds up. It's and that, well, unfortunately, I had a video of somebody doing it, which is unfortunate that you can't see it because I think a lot of people just hear it and think, it sounds stupid. So it's good to see the video, but never mind. I'll have to stick it up. On my Facebook group. So if anybody doesn't think I'm crazy, there's a Facebook group which is just Mars Real now. I've dropped the Mars 4 Real. If anybody just wants to get in touch, can give me any useful information, put me in touch with anyone else, please do. I really appreciate that. Great, and thanks for letting me talk. And I'm sorry if I went over time a little bit.
My name's Dianne McGrath. I'm part of the Space Association, and Michael asked me to put something together to just describe Mr. SpaceX's ideas on getting to Mars. We've heard a lot about what we do when we get there, but the 90% of the problem seems to be getting there for a reasonable cost. And I guess Mr. Musk reception on the 29th, when he presented this in Mexico, was from pure fantasy to visionary. But I'll drop some couple of pointers here that might put some reality to this thing. Okay, now this has had it already. No, out of battery. You want to just move the slides? At the risk of being a plagiarist, I've taken Mr. Musk's presentation and just regurgitated, but I'm going to race through it just to remind people what he actually said and what he's actually going to do. Okay, try that one. Expecting no. Turn on. Here we go. Challenges that you will have on Mars. He presented this on the 29th of September, and that's Mr. Musk, one of the modern day entrepreneurs. and some would say visionaries. Why go anywhere, he said. And he put these really nice pictures. Why Mars? Blatantly obvious, I would have thought. Why Mars? It's very close to Earth and it's in the habitable zone. Great place to go to. Not like Venus, which is next to the Earth, which has got a greenhouse gas problem running rampant. Mars is the logical choice. It's close. These are the comparators. We've already seen some comparisons. The length of day is uncannily very, very close to Earth's. It has about 60% of the gravity. How much? 38%? You sure? 62% less gravity. Correct. 38. So it's a very attractive place to go. So his idea is really about reducing costs and getting enough people who want to go. His objective is facilitate Mars colonisation. However, he doesn't say or put forward how to do it once you get there. What he's really talking about is, I can get you there. You can work out how to deal with it once we get there. At the moment, no one can afford to really go to Mars. Using traditional methods costs a fortune. So the idea is that you can drop it to the cost of perhaps buying a house, 200, 300,000. One might decide to put your money into being part of the new frontier. Go and live on Mars. Again, could be a bit of a fantasy, but to some people it's would be quite an interesting objective. So how do you improve the costs per tonne? These are the 4 ingredients. Full reusability, refueling in orbit, propellant production on Mars, and the right propellant. And this is the proposal, this is the kind of business plan, very simple. Phase 1, trial and error. Phase 2, revolutionise the cost space travel, and then the actual colonising of Mars. The idea is to have 1 million people by the end of the decade, the century. Decade, that would be something. Full reusability. Well, if he only used a 737 he described, on a cost per person single use, it's $500,000. However, at the moment it's $10 comparative cost of fuel per person. So reuse really is the thing. Refilling in orbit. His idea is to launch a spacecraft fully populated with the 100 or so that he uses as colonisers, and you refuel in orbit. You actually, it's a 2-staged orbit process, and you then shoot off to Mars. Propellants on Mars, well, live off the land was a word that I heard that was really makes the point here, and the idea is to make your own fuel. What propellant to use? A lot of studies on it, but the clear choice is methane and oxygen. Methane comes straight out of the Martian atmosphere, can produce it. With some innovative energy-making devices and lots of mylar perhaps, and maybe a nuclear reactor or two, you might be able to do this quite efficiently. And it will be complicated, David, and no doubt will have some cost. But if you get it going, it may be a good choice. And here is the proposal. Now, this is where he blew me away on this presentation when he presented this thing. It used to be called the Mars Colonial Transporter, but changed its name to the Interplanetary Transport System. And the idea is that you have a passenger rocket. It gets into orbit, and then you launch very, very near the same time a refueling version, and that will refuel in orbit. It might take 2 or 3 of these things to refuel the passenger ferry, and then off it goes to Mars. It's very interesting because since he presented this, there's a number of critiques of this system. many people say, why have this big thing going up and landing on Mars and coming back? Are there better ways, like the lunar orbit rendezvous in the moon landing days? So Robert Zubrin was good at critiquing this, the good and the bad, so it's worth reading about it, but he's put something on the table, which is very interesting. And the idea is that this thing lands on Mars, people go out into the space and the habitats that are constructed there, and then it flies back. And the idea is that you're constantly cycling and reusing the equipment. Vehicle design and performance, this thing is a monster. It's a carbon fibre primary structure. It uses methane, liquid oxygen, and autogenous pressurisation. What does that mean? It actually doesn't need alternative gases. It uses its own gases and way to actually pressurise itself. So now, interesting, last month we were looking at what was going on, and if you think this is pure fantasy, some months ago SpaceX actually put in an order to a Japanese company of about $3 billion for carbon fibre material. So if you think this is fantasy, he's just thrown $3 billion at it. So he's up to, and at the time we thought lots of 5.2 metre fairings for Falcon Heavies, or an upgrade Falcon 9, or the Mars Colonial Transporter, and it turns out that's what he's bought the carbon fibre for. I always have a technological concern. The X-33, if you recall, back in the 90s, came to naught because one of the biggest technical challenges was building the carbon fibre fuel tanks. It delaminated, it did all sorts of things. Remember, this machine that Elon Musk wants to build is super cold fuels, so it's certainly a challenge, but I'll get back to that. And this is how it looks in the grand scheme of rocket launches. And I'm sorry, Igor, there's no substantial Russian Angaras or anything there, so we apologise to our Russian colleagues, but that colonial transporter on the extreme right is a monster. It actually can lift, the Saturn V, for example, can lift about 135 metric tons into low Earth orbit. This thing can lift 550 tons. So it is a quantum leap of lift capacity. There it is. I'm not going to talk about it other than it's a monster. This is what was this one? This was old drawings that I had. They look lousy here because I've scaled them up, but these were the old versions of what became the ITS system. There you have the latest group of rockets. Again, apologies to our Russian colleagues, but we have the Blue Origin rockets in there as well. Now they're not as powerful as the SpaceX rockets, but they call theirs the New Glenn, but there's the little rumour of the New Armstrong. So if judging by the competition between Jeff Bezos, Blue Origin, and Elon Musk, one could imagine that the New Armstrong might be bigger than the BFR, as they call it.
What does BFR stand?
Big Falcon rocket. Okay, the spaceship, there we have it. Again, booster, and then you've got this, and the thing that struck me was 42 Raptor engines, and I keep having bad dreams about the M1 rocket, the Russian M1, which had 24 Igor? 30. And they had some real problems. It was more, I guess, the guidance systems and the control systems of that particular rocket, but trying to control that number of engines is a real challenge, technical challenge. Not all of them gimbal, so he's made it simple. Just a few of those rocket engines down the 42, the bottom gimbal, and the others are just static. And then you go up to the 9 Raptor engines up the top. 3 are atmospheric for landing, and the others are for, the 6 are for space insertions and Trans-Mars insertions, spaceship and booster. All right, and there it is again. Now this was one that there's various versions of this thing. There's the fuel tanker, there's the transporter, and there's other things. Perhaps you know, Melbourne to London in an hour. Who knows? He's certainly got some ideas with this thing, but it's a behemoth of a rocket, that's for sure. The Raptor engine. And there it is. Now this has been under development. Here's another part of this fantasy or visionary. This has been in development for some years now, and just before the presentation, they actually had a firing of this rocket. So it's real. It's real, you know, bent metal and working. Now they're going through the developmental phase. This is a magic engine. It really is. It's, you know, as good as some of the great Russian technology that we've seen of recent years in the RD 180s and 181s, where they're all internally cyclic systems, very high pressures. It'll be another challenge to manage it, but it's on it's in development. The rocket booster. Here's another thing. This thing actually lands, comes back to the Cape. And apparently, the idea is you land it right on the spot, and so all the arms and service arms and that can refuel it, and off it goes again. Again, it's about minimising the cost of operations on the ground. Amazing machine. And there it is. Awesome. Interplanetary spaceship can also be used for other things, but this is an interesting thing. I mean, the cargo to Mars, 450 tonnes. You've got to remember the MSL Curiosity is in the 1 tonne range. Red Dragon to Mars is in the 8 to 9 tonne range. This thing delivers 450 to Mars.
What's SLS supposed to do?
SLS? Mars? Don't know. SLS is 150 metric tonnes to low Earth orbit compared to 550 for this thing. I tried to make heads or tails of that slide, but I really, without thinking too much about it, it's to do with fuel tanks and the payloads you can carry, and there's a trade-off on how much fuel versus how much landing mass. Now, one of the tricks, and some years ago, NASA wrote about that the only way we're going to get to Mars, we're not going to use the atmosphere because there is very little of it. We're going to have to do supersonic retro landings. At that stage, it was all pie in the sky until Mr. Musk proved it could be done with his Falcon 9s. He's done it repeatedly. He knows how to land and fire engines supersonically. This is what you're going to need to land huge payloads on Mars. Forget about parachutes and bouncing balls and all the rest of it. This is what you use. And he knows he can do it. He's done it. Propellant plant, again, for the chemists out there, you mix a few things together and bingo, you can get methane and liquid oxygen. Costs, reusability, sweet spot seems to be, 10 reuses, 10 to 15, and you're probably getting good value for money out of the reuse. So the idea is to use these things multiple times. Funding, steel underpants. I bloody well know where that came from. I wasn't quite sure what he meant. It's one of Elon Musk's wry sense of humours that he has. Launch satellites. Yes, he's doing that. He's trying to launch satellites. He's had a bit of a setback, but he'll be up there again. Send cargo and astronauts to ISS. He's getting paid to do that. Kickstarter, the public funding, and from profits. Timelines. PayPal. Yeah. This was him in 2002. Some of the timelines of things he's done. The future. The next step. The one to watch from 2018. Elon reckons he's going to launch something every 2 years to Mars. NASA are giving him all the assistance they can, and they're looking to gain the information that comes out of it. But I sometimes wonder whether they treat him seriously or not. Sometimes, but he certainly intends to have a crack at it. The Red Dragon is obviously the one that we're looking for, and it will be launched on the Dragon, the Falcon Heavy. It was meant to fly a couple of years ago. So one thing Elon Musk is, he's never on target with any of his timelines. However, the time frame of starting to colonise Mars in the mid-20s, even if it was the 30s, the mid-30s, it's a pretty damn good achievement, because NASA won't do it till the 50s. Bet your bottom dollar on it. So, not a bad effort. There it is, Red Dragon. This is an old version of the old Dragon capsule picture that I got, but this is what the newer version, this is a video but I won't show it, and this is what it looks like, starting to colonise, or they're going to do a number of tests first, commencing 2018. Oops, that didn't work out very well, but we saw that slide before, the engineering impossibility, not impossible, but unlikely.
I think, yeah, it's very hard.
Cost too much. But that's how I always envisaged a Mars colony till you destroyed my image of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of pictures like that. I guess everybody thinks, you've got to have plants there to make food in there. It's just really, it's got to be really strong to hold in the Earth atmosphere. So.
See, when you described your Mars colony, I kept thinking of the time machine, and all those little creatures that lived underground. And I thought, oh God, so we're going to have a group of subterranean colonisers.
And everything in there dies of radiation.
And everything will die of radiation.
Oh, yeah.
The raptor firing, well, there it is, real technology. Carbon fibre tank. Just to, again, demonstrate that he's got one. And there it is. Quite a large tank. That would have been more than adequate for the X-33 Venture Star, the Lockheed Martin thing, but miles bigger. I don't know how much testing they've done on it, but he's built one. Pretty good.
He said it survives cryogenics.
Sorry?
He said it survives cryogenics. That's something come 5 minutes.
I'd love to see him use it a couple of times, but look, he's got it on the ground, he's working on it, it's in development. Whether he succeeds is anybody's guess. And of course it's interplanetary transport system, so off to Jupiter and maybe some of the moons. Europa. Not to be outdone, I just thought I'd throw him in. He's doing some pretty cool stuff too. And of course he announced his New Glenn rocket, and they're building a factory to build these things at the Cape as we speak. So this is Benningham. Again, he's using the BE4 engines. They're the ones that are going to be used by United Launch Alliance for their Vulcan, but they're not as powerful as some of the SpaceX stuff. But when we get to the new Armstrong, who knows what he'll do? Maybe there'll be a BE5. Maybe there'll be 40 BE4s. I don't know. And they will land. Come back to the ground. And there it is. Nice picture of the various launch rockets. There is a Soyuz there, but no Angara. Boeing. That's one that was mentioned, actually talked about it, but didn't mention Boeing. Every man and his dog in the space industry has got a plan to get to Mars. But again, if you look at the Boeing stuff, and I don't know a lot about it, I didn't sort of swat up on it. It very much relies on, surprise, surprise, the SLS and the NASA way of doing business. So, it's the big hairy arm aerospace company, a bit like Lockheed Martin, doing the same sort of thing. Let's build a big, inflatable thing in space and use it as a stepping stone. And anyway, I got the feeling this is probably the slow road to China, if you like. But there it is, again, using Orion and the various habitats, putting them all together, sending them stacked to Mars, landing on Mars, and starting a habitat. So even Boeing are into the race. That's it.
of information here, and I'm sure there's a lot of questions that probably people have in their mind. What we thought we'd do now is, it's been a while, so we might take a break for say 15 minutes. And I thought about doing like a Jeffrey Robinson hypothetical, putting on an outrageous English accent and asking questions, even though I was born in Sydney, but I probably won't do that. So what we will do, we'll take a break and then we'll come back and maybe have a few questions for the panellists and anyone else who wants to raise things. One thing that occurred to me while I was listening to the talks there is that our next meeting, our November meeting, we'll have a new administration in the US elected by that stage. So we might take a few moments to look at the Mr. or Mrs. President and have a look at their policies, whatever they may have. And I think it's pretty few and far between. There's not much meat on the bone there. So we'll see that. Maybe we'll think about being our bunkers for what might happen if someone gets in. So yeah, take a break, 15 minutes. So it's let's meet back here at 9:45. If that's all right. presentation from our resident Russian/Soviet export, Igor Rosenberg. He's going to give us an update on the ExoMars 2016 mission, which is a partnership between the Space Association and the European Space Agency and Roscosmos, I think that says. And so anyhow, Igor Rosenberg.
Okay. Idea of this I have been asked to prepare this presentation since March 2016, when mission has been launched from Baikonur spaceport. Unfortunately, for you, no, it doesn't show. Okay, I'll try to put things in perspective. Obviously, you know that the most interesting, the most challenging part of the mission has been failed miserably. But to give European, to give to Space Agency credit, it was a bonus. Don't forget, landing on the Mars for this mission was a demonstration procedure. It's simply capability of launch vehicle Proton-M allowed to use a lander module, which wasn't even happened in original plans. This is a small overview what actually humanity achieved in accessing Mars neighborhood, starting from US Mariner program, Soviet Mars 3 probe, which managed to soft land on Mars first time, and since 1998, US has GPL actually provided quite interesting and robust Martian program, which doesn't match any other country capability. I'll give you a quick or brief history of Mars exploration, and we will talk about more if you have any additional questions about this particular ExoMars 2016 mission. Okay, Soviets started the game. They were pioneering Mars exploration quite intensively since 1962 till 1988. Not much success comparing with Soviet Venera or Venus program, but nevertheless they managed even to convert a spectacular failure to the first achievements, and we will talk about some of them. So in 70s they have Mars 1, it was first flyby mission. Even they fly not 10,000 kilometers but approximately 2,000 kilometers because they cannot navigate properly during on the route to Mars. One of spacecraft which flew 1,500 in 1965 unfortunately didn't get any scientific discovery because one of the solar panel malfunctioned and it has a half of power. Year 2000, we have to admit that European not first time tried to reach Mars. Mars Express orbiter, which is still active to the date, has been launched by a Russian Soyuz rocket. Unfortunately, the Beagle 2 mission has been failed. Even we know right now, each landed successfully, each failed to deploy solar panels. This is what we know from most recent information. India managed to put in 2014 so-called Mars orbiter mission, or Indian name is Mangalyaan. Japan failed to enter a spacecraft into orbit and lost contact. It became a satellite of Sun in 2003. It has some plans, but it's not obvious what should happen next. Russia became a newcomer because, unfortunately, it was a huge gap between last time Soviet Union launched something and failed twice miserable. Mars 96 probe happens to be sink in Pacific Ocean. It was a big scare that it would be land in Australia. I remember this. I was in Sydney at that time. And most recent one, 2012, again, Phobos ground probe is supposed to be Phobos sample return mission. Did not leave Earth's orbit because of failure in navigation and happens to be sunk on the bottom of Pacific Ocean too. Unfortunately, the same company, Lavachkin, is going to design lander for second stage of ExoMars 2020, and I don't believe they have to discover something from scratch. I don't believe they preserved know-how which even Soviet has. There is a huge generation gap, and people who managed to do something with Mars exploration, they already gone. Okay, Chinese plans probably more unclear, but in theory they're going for orbiter, lander, rover, and sample return mission based on technologies they developed for lunar return mission, sample return mission. So there are only perspective. Chinese flag never have been in vicinity of Martian orbit yet. Okay, milestones. The first Martian flyby was done in 1962. Like I said, the intention was to fly a probe in 10,000 kilometers. It flew 20 times further away because of failure in correction system. But anyway, it was an achievement, even in its glorious failure. First Martian orbiter, you have to appreciate the difference in dates. Look at this. Mariner 9 entered orbit on November 14th, 1979. The next Soviet probe entered orbit technically within 2 weeks. So you can see how close space race was. And compare it with current time, when mission happened like every 4 or 5 years. So it was definitely a big rush. First hard landing was done by Mars 2, 1971. First soft landing has been done by Mars 3, December 71. This is Carl Sagan, obviously. NASA managed to achieve first rocket-powered landing on 2 spacecraft, Viking 1 and 2 in 1977. There are some experiments that jump to conclusion that there is no even remote possibility of life on Mars. Unfortunately, the whole concept and how experiments has been set up has been criticized in the scientific community. They probably overheated samples, and whichever they could find, it was evaporated. So there is a big controversy about the whole Viking experiments in 1977. And US achieved a NASA Constellation program, claimed their Aurora space exploration program, and ExoMars was chosen as one of the flagship missions of this program. This is supposed to be launched on Soyuz launch vehicle. Later on, they review mission completely. It's supposed to be launched in cooperation with NASA. It's supposed to be a European rover, and it's supposed to be launched on Atlas V. Unfortunately, due to the cut of budgets in 2012, I believe, NASA withdrew their participation from this program. And the European Space Agency found help in very unusual place. Roscosmos provided 2 launch vehicles, Proton, just to support this mission. In ExoMars 2016, all hardware except 2 instruments on orbiter were European. In ExoMars originally, which is supposed to fly on 2018, the lander platform has to be developed by Russians, which causing a lot of trouble, I believe, aftermath of non-successful landing of European developed hardware. What would happen, and we'll talk about this later, I believe that they try to cooperate more closely between European specialists who will do landing algorithm, Russians, and I suspect they probably would even took participation of assistance from NASA. Otherwise, this mission is doomed. The next one. Proton launch was almost perfect. There were some gossips about Breeze M. Breeze M is a launch space staff developed by Hrunichev. This was the first maiden mission for interplanetary mission. It usually was designed and used only for geostationary missions. We move further. Lander was named after Italian astronomer Giovanni Schiaparelli. This is the guy who created controversy around Martian channels in the 19th century, in the end of 19th and beginning of 20th century. The problem that word channels has been misspelled or completely wrongly translated from Italian. In Italian, canali means something non-artificial, while in English and language, channel means something made by human. And because of loss of translations, the whole campaign around life, civilized life on Mars happened and paved the way to the scientific work of Harper Tools and others. So this guy is responsible for whole creation of science fiction team of alien invasion from Mars. This was supposed to be ExoMars entry, descent and landing demonstration module. Angela asked me where we can find a big hole in Martian plate, Meridian Plateau. It's quite interesting that NASA Opportunity rover in neighborhood. It's just a few hundred kilometers across. It's functional, but none of instrument works. So if we start petition and ask NASA to send Opportunity to find Schiaparelli, it's quite possible. It's in distance.
Didn't they have the image though?
They've just shown pictures of it.
Yeah, but they're showing pictures from, it's like a dots from the orbiters.
Yeah, but
there is a rover in the neighborhood.
The rover didn't see it. No, the rover's going to spend. So they've got years getting. The rover will not go. Not go there.
Okay.
They did show a picture of what they think is a splatter.
Yeah, there is a possibility.
Well, they think the engine's cut out way too early.
Yeah, we will talk about why it's failed. Yeah, we will talk. I'll show you the sequence of events for engine descent and landing, and we'll talk where it's failed. When it didn't survive, any plane didn't survive exposure to the field. Major event, March start. Even after loss of Schiaparelli, Mars orbiter TGO, which stands for Trace Gas Orbiter, still orbit Mars, and it would be used as a relay for any future missions. Its camera would be used to find any possible future landing sites, and the European Space Agency planning end of the mission of orbiter in December 2022. So this was a major objective of ExoMars 2016.
Doesn't that do the gas analysis too?
Yes, it does.
That's working.
Yeah. We will talk about instruments on board of TGO. In 16th of October 2016, everything seems to be like normal. This is the moment when lander and TGO orbiter separated en route to the Mars. This has happened before TGO entered orbit. As a result, lander has to withstand much bigger effort to land. I still don't understand why they did not put both of them on orbit, and it would be much easier to land from orbit, but I suspect there are some ballistic limitations, or they were fighting for each kilogram of payload. I believe it was some payload penalty, otherwise they will choose this option. Yeah. So as you can see, it's almost in the place when opportunity is, at least on scale of this map. So it's Meridian Plateau, and who knows, maybe somebody will win a prize if they found pieces of Schiaparelli in the nearest future. It's a job for future Martian archaeologists. Okay, so what exactly went wrong? Schiaparelli is supposed to enter atmosphere. Everything was fine until this moment. They have contradictory data from two orbiters, but after analysis they confirmed that parachute deployed quite without any problems. They dropped front shield. They dropped rear shield with a parachute and started around here. When engine landing thrusters worked at 3 seconds instead of 30 seconds. We don't know what exactly go wrong. ESA claimed that they have 600 megabytes of telemetry to analyze. My gut feeling there is a potential software bug in some of configuration file or some way software which disrupts the whole sequence. So as a result, it did not crash immediately, but it crashed because it reached Martian surface with a speed which was exceeding nominal. So technically it's crashing. Yeah, because it's outside of the design parameters. I'll skip video. I'll skip video. This video you can see it. I will share it later on. It was multimedia about possible potential landing site. So what would happen next? What would happen next? Obviously, it will add some pressure for ExoMars mission in 2020. Like I said, Roscosmos Lavochkin supposed to deliver landing module. And I suspect it will be much closer cooperation with European, American and Russian engineers to ensure that this mission will be succeeded. Russians is very interested in European radar and laser navigation that they did not have, which probably would make algorithm of landing a little bit more adaptive than we see right now. Russians still trying to invite Europeans for Phobos Grunt sample return mission. It's a repetition of the failed attempt in 2012. There is a holy grail of planetary science is a Mars sample return mission, but it's moving beyond 2030. And there is a Russian robotic lunar program. Again, Russians very interested to use European technology because of more adaptive algorithms of lunar landing. This is actually scientific payload for the mission. Two instruments have been designed and developed in Russia. This one using 3 infrared spectrometers, and this one using neutron spectrometer to identify existence of hydrogen on the surface below up to 1 meter. So this device actually will try to pinpoint location of methane vapor. This package is quite high resolution camera, 4.5 meter per pixel resolution, and I don't exactly remember what this was. I believe it's true infrared and one ultraviolet spectrometer. Okay, quiz question. How many orbiters currently active around Mars? Okay, I can give you a clue. Between 1 and 10.
5.
Close.
4 or 5.
6. Okay, Mars Odyssey is still alive. US? Mars Express, European Space Agency one, still alive. Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, this is orbiter which actually made photo where it crash landed. Indian one, Maven, the most recent US orbiter which arrived in 2014, like in a matter of days between them. And ExoMars TGO, the sixth one, it's up and running. This is a book you can read. It's some of the book first three. It's about the golden age of the robotic exploration. Yeah, you can see these two books not published yet, and this is actually was gift for Len, who is not present today. He's absent, but this was for him. Okay, questions?
A comment which is interesting is that the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter and some of the other orbiters have relay packages on them for relaying the information from the rovers back to Earth, because obviously the rovers are out of direct communication with the Earth most of the time.
TGO has the same capability. It should be used as a relay communicator as well.
One of the problems with the number of craft that they're planning on landing on Mars in the next few years is they won't have enough capacity in the relay system to relay all the ground telemetry that they gather. So it's apparently something that they've, as a group of agencies between them, have overlooked having that capacity enough capacity on the orbiters for the coming landing missions, particularly if things like Musk lands on Mars.
Okay, my suggestion is watch the constellation of orbiters, because any serious mission you need to have two things. You need to have like at least 3 orbiters with phase of 120 degrees, so they will have permanent coverage, so there are no black holes in communication with Earth. The company/country which is going to supply this, it actually would be very serious intention, and I suspect Chinese will put this constellation first, unfortunately. There is another gap in communication when Earth and Mars on other sides of the Sun. I don't remember, there is a quite nice astronomy term for this.
Opposition.
Yeah, opposition. Again, it's possible to launch satellite on the Hala orbit, which would provide, if this orbit, it's very easy to calculate radius of this orbit, which will allow, even in case of opposition, this orbit would exceed the range from the Earth, even it has to go through Sun. So there is a simple geometry. So as soon as these satellites, as soon as you can see these 4 satellites, which means that conquest of the Mars would start. Before this, everybody would concentrate on single mission only, not on the program.
Igor, for what it's worth, Anatoly Zak did make the point that they did crash in the centre of the landing ellipse. So navigation was clearly pretty good.
Well, at least Anatoly can confirm that Russia has nothing to do with this. At least for this mission. We have a joke about this, but by technical reasons happened outside of territory of Soviet Union. It happened. So no, Russians not responsible. But try to find, I didn't have time for this, there is a quite interesting cartoon, it's called Spring on Mars animation. It's how, if it would be life on Mars, how the Martians, native Martians, would see arrival of the probes from Earth which malfunction in 90%. It's quite funny.
Is it working? My presentation's been pretty much cancelled because of lack of time. However, I'm going to show just one thing really. But related to Schiaparelli, I've done some calculations of where Schiaparelli landed compared to the Opportunity rover, and it's 55 kilometres away, basically back in the direction from which Opportunity has come. So even if you drove Opportunity at the maximum velocity it can go, which is about 100 metres a day, you can work out it's going to take about 550 days to drive there. And there's no point doing so because they actually want to drive the opposite direction into the crater. And I do have maps and so on. Now, the thing we can do is the movie, which is 008, is Michael. Now, you remember there's 8 people in space at the moment, 2 aboard Tiangong-1 and Shenzhou 11, and there's 6 aboard the International Space Station. This, China launches from the Gobi Desert, and it has to overfly mainland China to get into orbit. So here is the air traffic, and at the time they launched Shenzhou 11 last week. Okay, Michael, play it. Could you go back to the beginning, Michael? It's not playing properly. Possibly because it's running off the USB stick. Here we go. You notice the airspace has been cleared. The launch takes place. Too bad about the people down below if it crashes. And now the aircraft can now return. And you see their parades heading back towards the usual flight paths. So that's one of the reasons why China has recently opened a new spaceport down on Hainan Island, which is their only coastal launch site. And they have to do that every time there's a launch on the Gobi Desert. Just a quick update on Juno. Juno was supposed to did a flyby last week of Jupiter, close, about 2,000 kilometres away from the cloud tops, and it was planned to not do any science and to use that to do the orbit adjustment to bring it down from a 55-day orbit, which is in at the moment, down to a 14-day orbit. However, there was a problem in the pressurization system and the propellant system, and they decided not to do the orbit change. As a result, they then decided, well, okay, we'll do the science, which they hadn't been going to do on this pass just a week ago. And what happened was, just as they were approaching, they had a outage in the one of the systems, and they had the spacecraft entered safe mode, which meant that the science instruments were shut down, and this thing just oriented itself to make sure the panels were square on the thing and communicating with him saying, help, I'm in trouble. As a result, the science was not done. So the pass that went on just last week, no science was done during the close pass, and it's still in the 55-day orbit. They can remain in that orbit until 2019, when they'll pass through some eclipse periods. But the intention still is to get into a 14-day orbit. The reason is then they get the science every 14 days rather than every 55 days. So that's the situation with Juno. And I better just leave it there. There's at least more science, planetary stuff happening, but we're out of time, so we better close the meeting, I guess.
Well, thanks, Andrew. As normal, we tend to run out of time for everything, and Andrew sort of tends to get to the last little bit. Look, just like to say thank you for everyone who coming along tonight, particularly to our speakers coming along. We really appreciate you taking the time and coming out and speaking. Thank you very much, and thanks for all of you coming out this evening. Once again, just a quick reminder, the open night at the radio station is on Wednesday night of this week, so go down there if you wish. And hang around for a few minutes. Once again, I think I mentioned these items down here are for sale. So if you want interested in any of those, come talk to me. And with that, we'll close the meeting. Other than some paperwork. If you're not already receiving our emails, you can put your name and email address on this sheet here, and you'll go on our email mailing list, and you'll get updates of activities, what's happening at meetings, special events, etc., discounts on tickets, etc. So, enough etceteras. I'll leave you with that. Thank you again, and see you next month.